Welcome back. I am Bharat Modi from the evidence-based education system process. I am the proponent for that. And today we are going again for the 5 A's of evidence-based education system, that is Appraise. And this is section 2, which is dealing with the introduction and aims and objectives of a research article, what to look, what to find, how to evaluate that, whether it is applicable to your patients or your research or not. All this will be covered in this presentation. This is the second part of the overview which you said about introduction and the intent statement which is there. When you are in the process of appraising an article, there are certain questions which keep on going into your mind. Is the topic of interest? Because you are trying to search for your patient or for your research, and that is why the topic should be relevant for that particular topic. So is it of interest to us? Does it fit into your patient problem in the research? Does the introduction summarize previous research on the same topic? Because unless and until that introduction is backed by previous research, otherwise that is a personal opinion, and then as far as evidence-based education system is concerned, that is not relevant. Has the detailing of the research and the problem statement done elaborately? Because that is what is going to tell you whether that article is good enough or bad. And if you have to assess that, then you need to know that. And the paper also should be elaborate enough. Is the paper overview incorporated? So there should be a certain overview of what the paper includes. You don't have to read the entire paper, and with that overview you will come to know whether it is of interest or not. And does the research article give clear empirical statement, or does it appear to be argumentative? And this is very important. Whenever something is very argumentative, your red flag should go out, because that means he is going all out to entice you, and maybe the scientific background is not there. So it has to be empirical rather than argumentative. The content is also as important. So one has to, while appraising, one has to ask ourselves about the content. How good is the introduction to the topic? The description of the background knowledge which is there, is it proper? Establishing the research problem, is it very nice, clearly mentioned, so that you come to know what exactly the research is all about? And elaboration of the objectives, whether they are related to the aims which or the research problem which has been written in the aims part. So that if they match, then probably the research is good enough. And the mapping of the flow of the research, the protocol which is there, that should be good enough for us to find out whether the article is authentic or not. When you are looking at the introduction, the first paragraph which is there is good enough to give you an indication what kind of topic it is, what is being done, and whether it is relevant to your clinical patient or the research which you are trying to contemplate. And this is called the opening hook. And the interesting fact, the statistical figure, the strong statement, affirmative or as an anecdote, that should be enough to tell you about the article. Now, if it has to be argumentative, then, for example, it would be roadside accident cause more death than the death caused by smoking and lung cancer. Now, this is a very sweeping statement and probably totally out of context. Otherwise, if it had been empirical, the wording would have been several research articles, the author quotes them, shows high incidence of cancer and smoking, making it the leading risk factor for lung cancer. Here, what is more important is that in the second part, it is backed by evidence, and it is talking about the risk factor, not the flashy item which the argumentative said, because then it would mean that people can go ahead and do the smoking because accidents are more common for the deaths, and not smoking. So that gives you a wrong impression. And that is why what we need to see is whether it is empirical or not. The second step is about the background, whether it has been properly done or not. And this is the part which tells you how good that particular paper is. In the argumentative, it will just be a statement, whereas in empirical, there will always be backed with previous research work which is done. And that gives you an indication of how good that paper is. For example, if we are talking about carbon dioxide emission and respiratory problem, if it's argumentative, it would be a straight statement. Increased industrial emission is causing increased carbon dioxide level, causing respiratory. But if it is empirical statement, what it will first do is how much is the green belt out there, how much of the carbon dioxide which is being emitted by the industries is being taken care of the green belt, and whether the problem lies of the green belt or whether it is because of the industrial pollution which is there. So the balance between good and bad is taken care of in an empirical statement. Step 3 deals with the problem statement which has been there. And problem statement clarity is very important, because unless that is there, the value of that paper may not be properly assessed. Now, if it is an argumentative paper, the statement would be straightforward. For example, it will be a statement saying that the research is unique and different, but that doesn't tell you whether it is really unique or different. But if it's an empirical statement, there will be it will be gapped with the previous research. The gaps which are there in the previous research, that will be addressed, and it will also tell you how that gap will be solved by the research which they have done. So the contribution of the others is also very important when you are trying to evaluate a paper or appraise it. The step 4 talks about the objectives of that. Now, given the specifics of what the article intends to find out and express in the research paper is given by the objectives. The framing of the objectives will vary between argumentative and empirical, because argumentative will give you more elaborate, whereas empirical will just state what the research is all about. So if it's an argumentative paper, it will go ahead and talk about evidence and arguments in favor of the main question of the research which is there, and the position of that will be very clearly and directly without providing any special argument for it at that point. Whereas in empirical there will be just a straightforward form of a research question pertaining to the statement without any frills and festoons. The step number 4 is about objectives. The objective should reflect the research question which has triggered this particular research project in the first place, with a minimum of discussion. Including discussion at this stage is argumentative, and one should be very wary about such articles. Now, the research question could be framed in either directly or indirectly. A direct statement can make it very argumentative. For example, the effects of daily use of Instagram have on the prevalence of body issue among adolescent girls. So it is dealing with how Instagram can influence adolescent girls. The indirect question of that would be that the Instagram use of the prevalence and the prevalence of body issues were measured in adolescent girls. It was hypothesized that the daily Instagram use is associated with the increase in body image concerns and decrease in the self-esteem. The framing is in the past tense as compared to the direct one, which is argumentative, which is a direct statement and it is in the present tense. The step 5 deals with the mapping of the paper. This comes at the end of the introduction, and it gives a brief overview of the research in question. Now, this is essential only if the standard like introduction, method, result, discussion format is not followed by the paper. Nevertheless, if it is included, the overview should be very concise, direct, and written in the present tense. The writing in the present tense is most important. For example, you have given two examples. And the first one tells you the paper will go on to explore. That will comes means it is talking about the future time. Whereas if it is direct, then it comes as then goes on to. So that comes as into the present tense, and that is why your framing also tells you what kind of mindset the article is having. The introduction should end with the research question, which will be similar to the aims and objectives, and the hypothesis statement if applicable, and it is in the narrative form. So we transit from introduction to the aims and objectives, and once we go into the aims and objectives, the aims and objectives are the most important part. The aim is already mentioned, so objectives are the most important. Does the article have a single detailed aim or does it have multiple aims? Multiple aims generally cause discrepancy and the loss of validity of that particular paper, and that is why normally one aim is very good. Objectives are the exploded and defragmented parts of the aim. The aim may be one, but then how do you achieve that aim? That is given by the objectives. For example, suppose you are correlating smoking with lung cancer, then exploding that would be first to find out the prevalence of tobacco smoking in the population by going into the demographic and seeing how many people are smoking. Then you go ahead with the next objective would be to correlate between what is the frequency of tobacco's use and the prevalence of or incidence of lung cancer. So that will be done. Then you can go ahead with finding out the frequency of use and then see whether the increased frequency is causing more amount of lung cancer. These are the way you can explore the material and then do it objectively. The objectives have actionable words suggesting that it is being done and it is being acquired actively. Objectives give what is compared and how to achieve them. So you come to know how the tables will be there, how the coding will be done, and possibly what kind of research may be possible. So we come to the end of the section 2, introduction and aim and objectives of the 5 A's of and the appraisal part of it. What I would suggest is that you go ahead and buy the book, read the book on evidence-based education. This will give you a much more elaborate matter on all these different factors. So you have to visit the website or interact with in the blog, communicate either by email or you can call. There is a digital card also, you can directly can be done. Or it can be through my LinkedIn page. That also will be possible. So this is how, in the main, why you need to interact is that evidence-based education program as compared to evidence-based process is considering, EBS considers that it is an ongoing process and the improvement will come, and this improvement can come only with discussion. So the more you discuss, the more we'll be able to evolve this evidence-based education system. So please read the book and thank you for listening to this video.